We are very excited and grateful to have Halima Abdullah Jennifer Wilkerson with us today. Halima is a singer-songwriter and published author. She holds a master's degree in psychology from Loyola University, as well as a master's of divinity from the University of Spiritual Healing and Sufism. She has dedicated her life to connecting people to their higher selves and the truth of God. You're welcome to visit her website at halimamusic.com. Her teaching today is O Man Ant, Who Are You? Finding a Garden Under Loss Through Lessons in Remembering Who I Am. Halima, welcome, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Abdullah. Hey, sweet family. I can't see all of you, but I'm going to pretend like all of you are right in front of me. My friends of the bench. I told my sister I would be sitting with you today and talking, and she said, well, what on earth are you going to say? And I told her I had just two criteria. I said, I just want one moment to have meaning for anyone. Just have a moment of meaning, and I don't want to cry. And she said, well, just keep it real, and you're totally going to cry. So we'll see what the Lord makes. I wrote you a letter. I finished it last night, and I'd like to read it to you now. And then we can just spend the rest of the time together in whatever way you want. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I finished writing you this letter last night, and I hope that my girl thoughts, my higher thoughts, my low thoughts, and all the in-between suffice as a good stepping stone for our time together in conversation. Because every one of us can be used as a teaching if we say yes to God. I am not a teacher, but these are the teachings that God is giving me, and to share them with you feels like the right thing for our time. And the date felt right, even though I knew it might be difficult. I think this is when we do our most honest work. When it comes from the heart's inclination, and not simply because it's easy. I wish I was the person who could testify with her whole heart that yesterday was a glorious day. A birthday, as it was described in an email to me from the community. But I am not her yet. I'm just me trying daily to remember who I am, created to be, in the midst of feeling lost still, and still wondering who I'm meant to be now. For you, as some of you have come to my heart each day with different circumstances, and some of you have written to me with your questions. So I hope to answer you and be a living teaching of not knowing, but honestly seeking the answers with expectation and patience. Even if we are shy or scared or reluctant, this is the stuff and the reason we testify. Because we cannot have a testimony without a test. Take what you want and leave the rest of anything I say, and we can all, inshallah, find some insight by being together. You, my family, and to share this time with you. My heart is a little fragile today, and I can think of no other reason to expend it than this. It's another teaching of shaking the tree for me. So here I go. I return to the beginning of my walking. I return to the chapter in Music of the Soul. Man Ant, who are you? This was one of the first writings of Sufi I was able to read after his leaving. Because I heard his voice in the writing, I couldn't do it well before without a lot of emotion. But this particular lesson was calling to me, and for that, it was important to open his book, the first book I ever read from him, Music of the Soul, and to begin again, to ask the question, who am I? Because for me, it was who am I now without him? What name do I go by now? Where do I live? How do I serve? How do I heal from this? Who am I in this? And it was ironically a very similar state to the beginning of my marriage, with similar questions that led me to write a song you may know called Rescue Her. Jesus rescued me from the world, and Muhammad rescued me from myself. Sidi Muhammad al-Jamal rescued me from religion. And by this, I mean from the trappings that come from striving in religious obedience without the love of the relationship to your Lord that can contain it. From the mistake I was beginning to make when I took the tools that God was through Islam and turning them into rules. I wrote the song Rescue Her as a tribute to the beginning of this awakening, a song that found me on one of the first days in my new home in Jerusalem without preparation for who I needed to be in this new family, in this new culture, in this new role. Searching all my files for examples in the real world and coming up empty and asking God to help me from the most desperate place. It begged a question I asked Sidi Muhammad one day that reflected both my naivete and maybe a little wise concern. I asked him if he wanted a polite wife or an honest wife. Because after a mere few days as his beloved, I knew I would lose myself without being able to be who I was, even if that was not knowing who I was at the time and just needing patience. And he needed to be in this with me. It's a sad thing that I did not see these coexisting at the time. But it was a necessary conversation between us because there are women who answered husbands with politeness without realness. But to be real with my husband may be interpreted as being impolite, especially because we go publicly at times. And for the answer, it was this. He held my hand and we just sat together and were content with whatever the Lord wanted me to be for my husband. That answer was in the unfolding, and Sidi knew it would be out of love. And that was a rescue. You may feel this way with the law. Polite and honest can coexist, and God is not afraid of your honesty. It is in the deep polite to be honest with your Lord, so do it as often as you can. Risk it. Let your pain and your praise hang out together. Don't say Alhamdulillah in place of I'm afraid. You can say Alhamdulillah, and I am afraid. Alhamdulillah, this hurts more than I can stand. Can you let the two coexist? Because they are in you as one most of the time. And God already knows this. He is not afraid of your honesty. He already knows. So give it to him and let him transform it. And be grateful that he can do this. Don't keep the praise for him and the pain for yourself. If you try to keep them divided, you will live a divided life. A half-life, just as some do in their love relationships. Symptoms that may come up would include judgment of ourselves and then others, and resentment and legalism in your religion, a hard heart, passivity. I have seen these conditions in myself, and I still do. And it returns me to the question, who am I? And it returns me to face my Lord with honesty in my confusion, in my contemplation, in my deepest heart of longing for connection to him. So the first order for me is to know who I serve. So get to know your Father. Maybe you've put God in the same role as your earthly father, in a box, the man at work, but not a man to be loved by, the man in a suit, the man who is unapproachable. Don't keep him in the office. He wants to be in your everyday life. He wants to be the father to tuck you in at night. He wants you to speak plainly to him in those moments. You are his child. Remember him, and he will remember you, and he will help you to know yourself so you can know him. But don't waste your time contemplating your fate. Instead, contemplate his face, his goodness. Be grateful. This is much more beneficial for you than wondering what is wrong with you or how to fix it. Those are conversations to be had with him, and then left for him to respond to, because he's the responder. And he responded to me as the days and months and years unfolded in my marriage. Because marriage is the highest degree of love. It brings us to our knees, asking us to look at the lesser angels of our nature, requiring us to endure the most dense tasks of life, repetition, loneliness, and misunderstanding at times. And I walked through these lessons with the very teacher that led me to take Islam. He helped me smash all the images I had made in my own mind about what things should look like and take a real look at the real world and the real beloved. This is the dunya, he would say. in response to so many things, and we would shake our heads and move on. There's no real way to argue with someone who doesn't quite speak your language. It ends the conflict soon. You cannot be clever with your verbal cuts. And Allah is the wise. He put two poets together and made us use simple words between us to expose our hearts. And between us and the world, I learned through my beloved the simplicity of a religion that I would have otherwise complicated. I was reminded of this lesson years later while on our teaching tour. I had hired a massage therapist to help Sidi with some back pain. He arrived and was greeted with an intimidating handshake by Sidi, a show of how truly physically strong Sidi was, as he created a bit of pain in this man's hand. With a smile and acknowledgement and a wink, as if to imply, I could crush you, little boy, if I wanted to. And the therapist took this in stride and he laughed in admiration. But then he stood back and looked at Sidi kindly and simply said, I see you are strong, but I am not here because you are strong. I am here because you are in pain. And the result was the softest submission from one of the strongest men I have ever known. I want to show you a picture quickly of that, if I can. Can you see it, Abdullah?
Not yet. Do share screen.
Oh, okay.
There we go. Got it.
Got it. Okay. Help me get out. Stop share.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Because this helper who had arrived was being nothing but who he was intended to be. There is no special language, no flattery, no ego, simply an offering of a service and a heart prepared to give it honestly. It was an amazing moment, and I have seen few interactions when someone could be so authentic with Sidi. And it mirrored that day when I asked him about what kind of wife I should be, and the longing in my heart to be real with my husband, to not get lost in the myriad of social and cultural and religious digressions that would take me away from offering him what he needed in the moment. With no special language, no flattery, no ego, just a simple offering of my heart, prepared to give honestly to the one that I love. That helped me realize that this was the true polite. There was no difference between the two things I was asking, not really. I had just never seen them mix so beautifully before me. Give and receive without thought of who you are, only who you serve. So I imagine Sidi as your guide saying to you, I did not come here because you are in pain, because you are sad, because you are in need, because you are without funds. I came here to show you how rich you are. Lean back and trust me. I am not here because you are sad. I see you are sad. I am here because I see you are ready to be happy. The Lord has also been teaching me a deep lesson in the basics of our relationship. It began with me asking God, what is the difference between leaving the past for the past and remembering who you are, which for me seems to be linked to who I have been. Perhaps this is a beginner's question, but it is one I have considered again, and I'm considering this now. There's a difference in digging up old graves and putting flowers on them. So say salam alaikum and greet them with respect, these past stories of yours. Just as in the story of the wise man who kept his beads and was asked, why do you still do this? And he replied, I do not leave the things that led me here. There is wisdom in this to consider and know the balance. Who I have been has led me to who I am. Can I contain it all? Can I hold the student and the wife and the daughter and the widow like I did that one day when I took my own father under the holy rock in Jerusalem, just as my guide had done with me years before? What needs watering in you and what needs pruning? So God taught me how to do this with an answer that so humbled me and renewed me. He said, remember me and I will remember you. Ayat 152, Bakara, the cow. So I woke up with his words, these words, remember me and I'll remember you. And I began a morning conversation like I always do with God when I'm still uncensored enough to be plain and honest with my Lord. And I said, my Lord, you do not truly forget. So what are you really saying to me? And why would you ever imply that you won't remember me? Like a tit for tat, like I have to do something in order for you to know me or to love me. And he said gently to my bedheaded, worry-hearted self, to not put a period where there is none. And I considered this and I opened his word and I was really embarrassed that I did not know the rest of his message in this line. It continues, and be grateful to me and do not deny me. So we talked about this more and I put it to rest to see what he would teach me before my brain began to get too involved and meddle with the sweetness of the message. I began to see how I put periods on parts of my life that were not intended to end, but needed to be quieter only. I put a period on tools he was giving me that made them into sharpened rules without the context of love. I had become my own executioner. In so many ways with the excuse I was dying before I died, when this was not the truth of the matter. I was guilty of putting up concrete walls within myself, just like Israel, to create separation in myself with pieces of my life or character that did not seem to fit, that were painful, or that I simply did not think I could bring into alignment with my new faith. I was in such a hurry to be the perfect Abdullah that I twisted the job description.
Yep. Looks like Halima's signal froze. Halima, are you with us? You still with us? Looks like we might have lost her. Okay. Hang on, everybody. I'm sure she'll come back.
Ты только ты всем будешь слать.
Would it help if we all closed our videos?
No, she just needs to log back in. Most people's videos were closed, so I don't think that's the that was the problem.
Seems like a really good time to do remembrance and deepen with what she said. I think one sentence of what she said would be enough for me to sit with for days.
Here it is, in video.
Dude.
Исчезла, выключила себя. Прочитала я. Спасибо.
Испугалась.
О, Махаба, лук, толпа сидит. Айси Махаба. Это Махаба? Нет, это не Махаба. Это другой. Это центр Миннесота, наверное, да? Или где-то в другом месте. Как-то не видел. Ой, народ какой-то.
Okay, Bismillah. Halima, you're back.
Кто-то тащит, а это кто? Вижу голову Лейла Ясмин.
Halima, if you will, when you can, turn your camera on. Okay, Halima, can you hear me? Halima, can you hear me? We're not hearing you if you're speaking. No, we're still not hearing you, Halima. So keep trying. Keep trying. So, I think she's logging back in and out. Back out and back in. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Inshallah, we'll get back on track here shortly. Mm-hmm.